of turning out to be one of the classic matchups of the format, especially when you had the Pro Tour Khans of Tarkir. These were among two of the most popular archetypes. A lot of it, you look at the weapons that the different decks have. I'd say from the Obson side, probably the most important card here is going to be Siege Rhino. It's
Absolutely.
the card that Jeskai has just such a tough time dealing with.
Just a couple of lands to start here for Chad. He's got a Windswept Teeth and a Forest. On Kevin's side, a Mystic Monastery and just a Mountain. Typically with these Jeskai decks, they have a Burn Spell at the ready here, be it Magma Jet or a Lightning Strike to get something off the table. For Chad, he's going to sacrifice his Heath. He'll go down to 19. It's either a Forest or a Plains coming. And it will be a Plains.
Yeah, and with these three-color decks, this is something we saw at the beginning of the format. The first two turns are really just setup. They both get their games going on about turn 3. Sometimes Obson has a Caryatid. That gets them a leg up, but it's not unsurprising to see them just pass some lands to start the game.
Gonna take one, and oh, that's a big one. Vermont's gonna come into play. Chad, of course, gonna go down to 18 to cast it due to the white mana from Caves of Koilos. But now Jones is immediately put to the test. 4 toughness, a real pain in the butt. Well, Jeskai Charm's gonna put that back on top of the deck. Doesn't deal 4 damage to creatures.
No.
A little time walk action.
Buys him some time. These life points that Chad's paying are certainly not free in this matchup. But yeah, 4 toughness is difficult for Jeskai to deal with. The removal generally just does 3.
Yeah, Jones might just be working his way towards a Stoke the Flames turn here, which is put it on top right now, play a 4th land and just stoke it and move on with life. And that's exactly what he's going to do.
Yeah, and that's really a testament to the strength of Burmaz. That was 8 points of burn that he got out of Kevin's hand.
Chad going to tap some mana. Yep, it's a Rhino. This is the card that shows a big deal.
Say the Burmaz was a decoy, though. This is the card that really just punishes Jeskai.
It'll be a drain 3. So Chad's back up to 20. Jones is down to 17. And now he's got a big problem to deal with. He's going to start by tapping some mana here. This is a Plains. And that's a Seeker of the Way.
And this is a difficulty when you're playing a creature and burn strategy, you know, like a kind of a bluish aggro strategy like Jeskai. If your opponent just plays cards that are efficient enough with big enough numbers, that's a weakness of the deck. So when they have 3 4s for 3 into 4 5s for 4, especially when they have extra abilities on them, which both those cards do, that can be very difficult for a deck like Jeskai to deal with.
It's an attack for 4. Jones with no favorable blocks will take 4. He's going to go down to 13. You can see he does have a copy of Jeskai Charm in his hand, so this game is going to be a little bit more interesting than it may seem.
Yeah. You can't Jeskai Charm a Siege Rhino.
Well, you don't want to. That's for sure. Here's a Sorin. That's going to come into play. Looks like it's going to make a Vampire.
Yeah, and there's just a lot of life gain coming out of the Obson side right now.
I wonder exactly how Jones wants to work his way through this situation, because his Seeker of the Way is in play. That means the Prowess is going to likely trigger next turn. He'll start to be able to gain some life and maybe put himself in a racing situation. Not entirely sure if that favors him or not, but it's definitely something to consider at this point.
There's a lot of things for Jones to play around. As soon as Chad hits a 5th land, he has Wingmate Rock to also join the party here, which is a lot of power. It's also even more life gain on the Obson side. You're right, though. Kevin is in a position where he can threaten the Sorin if he wants to. And really, he probably has to. If you leave Sorin around, he'll gain Chad life, so the damage which he would deal is not particularly important.
Lightning Strike's going to come in. That'll take care of the token. Seeker of the Way will take care of the Sorin. Of course, trigger Prowess, so he'll get to gain 3 life from the very powerful white creature. A Mystic Monastery and a passing of the turn here from Jones. Aldrich will draw. He's at 18. Looks like he picked up a copy of Thoughtseize for the turn.
Aldrich's mana isn't really playing nicely with him. He's ahead very nicely on the board, but all his black mana makes him take damage, so the Thoughtseize is expensive. He doesn't have double green for the Courser, so he's a little limited in what he can cast. That said, he's still got to resolve Siege Rhino, and maybe that's enough.
Also has an Obson Charm over there as well. He's going to start by casting a Thoughtseize. He's going to have to take 3 to do so. So this is interesting to see if Jones is going to have a response here or not. Looks like he may. No, looks like he's just going to let it go. So Jeskai Charm, a Stoke the Flames, and a Battlefield Forge.
And this is a fine situation for Chad. He knows that he's ahead now.
I wonder what card you take here.
Well, Stoke versus Jeskai Charm. You probably take the Charm. It's usually a better card.
It's a little more mana efficient. Gonna pass the turn back. Jones will draw. Didn't get a great look at it, but he's organizing mana. He's going to play a land. Perhaps was it a Goblin Rabble Master? Yes, sir.
Not a shabby draw here for Kevin Jones.
Here's an attack. So curious how he wants to use the Stoke the Flames. Because he can just say, okay, dome you for 4 right now. Trigger prowess, deal you more damage, gain a little bit of life. Now, we're in a racing situation, which typically favors the Rabble Master. But he's going to hold steady. Looks like Urborg was the draw.
Yeah, that will give him the ability to cast that Wingmate Rock.
There's the attack for 3.
And Chad does have to be careful. This Jeskai deck can deal a lot of damage out of nowhere.
Yeah. And he has to take 1 to cast that Wingmate Rock, mind you.
Yeah. We'll go to 11.
Jones still very patient. Not using that Stoke the Flames. He'll draw a card first. See what he finds. Don't have a great look. That's a Hordling Outburst. Okay. That'll trigger prowess.
Pair of good draws here for Kevin Jones.
Not bad.
Going wide like this with a lot of tokens is something that is more difficult for the Abzan deck to deal with. That said, remember here that there's the potential for Chad to try for a lethal swing with this Abzan Charm in his hand.
Here's the attack. 2 fresh goblins. Of course, in the Rabble Master, the 3 goblins from Hordling Outburst have to stay back. They don't get haste. Goblin Rabble Master will trigger along with the Seeker of the Way. See if Jones has an effect before damage or not.
This remaining card is Stoke the Flames.
Yep.
He might stoke a creature here. If he stokes a creature, then Rabble Master will trade, and Chad will still take 5.
Yeah, it looks like he has some interest in stoking before damage. Yeah, clear out the real Wingmate Rock there, so you don't have to worry about that trigger. Trigger prowess it again, so now Seeker's a 4-power creature.
Right. That's certainly... So the clear blocks to put the bird then in front of the Rabble Master, as Seeker is a 4/4.
Now Chad giving this a lot of thought, and he will block there. So now 4, 5, 6 points of damage will come across, and Kevin Jones will get to gain some life. So Wingmate Rock was kind of an annoyance more than anything.
Yeah. And really just this swarm of goblins has been really helpful for Chad.
Chad has a 6th land. You see the Abzan Charm. He's got a Courser. And his other card is Elspeth. So there's land number 6 and 2nd green source of mana.
I think his only way to survive here is to play Elspeth. It's dangerous because he's putting himself to 4 in order to do this, which is not a number you want to go to against Jeskai. He has 4 blockers. Kevin has 6 attackers.
And I think Siege Rhino, yeah, it's hanging back on defense now.
Any burn spell here would be lethal.
Well, let's see what the draw is here for Jones. He's navigated into a nice position here this game.
He's had 2 great draws so far. The Rabble Master into the Outburst. Can he do one more?
Well, if everything's attacking, I would not feel comfortable unless those are going at Elspeth.
No, that doesn't seem good at all for him.
Yep.
And it was the 2.1 too. So Magma Jet will be lethal. Kevin Jones takes game 1.
Just got aggro up a game here over Abzan mid-range. Timely top deck there, so he was able to overcome Siege Rhino, which is something that is very difficult for Jeskai to do. As we take our attention to the sideboard here, where we will take a look at Chad's sideboard, which you have in front of you.
All right, going over to Chad Aldrich's sideboard. He has adapted the sideboard. He has a lot of ways to go very big. He even plays copies of Doom Blast out of the sideboard.
Yep, something Ari Laxed at the Pro Tour too. Yep. He had that nice Wrath package.
So he looks like he's playing more or less the same list that Ari had at the Pro Tour. That's in this matchup. It's those repeatable sources of damage that he has to watch out for out of the Jeskai deck. He has the 3 copies of Bile-Blight in the sideboard, which is probably his best weapon. It also stops Kevin from going wide with Goblin tokens and Hordling Outburst, like we saw game 1.
3 copies of Disdainful Stroke, 2 Inhostilities, 2 Anger of the Gods, 2 Negates. Good old Narset, something that Kevin knows very well. He's got that and Keranos on the board again, along with a Dig Through Time, a Glare of Heresy, a Reprisal, and a Font of Fortunes. That's a fun one. Kind of like that. I think the Disdainful Stroke is the easiest card to bring in here.
Disdainful Stroke, you need to have an answer to those Siege Rhinos. That's the best counterspell for them, so I would imagine he'll be bringing those in. Other than that, I'm not positive which of these things he actually likes. Glare of Heresy seems decent. They're white permanents. Reprisal's not bad.
Reprisal is good against some stuff and bad against other things.
Right.
Terrible against Courser, really bad against Wingmate Rock. Best possible against Siege Rhino.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, maybe that's just Siege Rhino that it hits.
Yeah.
Because Burmaz also is just the wrong size, so maybe he leaves that one out.
There's some interesting options here for Kevin. We'll see how he likes a sideboard with a deck that he's very familiar with as we do turn our attention to our Invitational Qualifier Series and the prizes that are available. They're all pretty sweet.
Yeah, so these are the Star City IQs. And as you see there, they come with an exclusive playmat, dice bag, pin, and then a voucher for Star City Games Premium. We hold these on Sunday on our open weekends in both Modern and Legacy, and soon whatever the format the main event wasn't.
Yes.
The two formats of the main event was not are held on Monday.
Yeah, we'll be doing the premier versions on Sundays for 2015 moving forward. For right now, through the rest of 2014 for the last dates, we have Premier IQs in Modern. So we'll have Premier IQ tomorrow, for example. That'll be Modern here from Richmond. But as Matthias mentioned, you got the pen, you've got the playmat, of course the dice bag, and then some amount of premium. Then, people love pins. So right now, it'll be Acorn Mystic that we are giving away as part of the Creature Selection Series and the pins. You guys oftentimes seeing us wear those on our suits. Today we've gone with the Worm token from Star City Games Game Night, but you can pick up plenty of pins and other fun things. Get in touch with your local game store to run these tournaments. Very easy to do. Just get in touch with Star City Games to get some organized play at your local store to be eligible for these awesome prizes.
Players still currently in sideboarding. Kevin Jones on your left there, currently the leader of the Season 4 points race.
Yeah, he's likely going to be at large bid for Season 4. He's got a nice lead on things right now. You can basically pen him in. Get your Sharpie out, actually. You can Sharpie him in to the Players' Championship later this year from Richmond. So a really big accomplishment for him, showing that, you can have success working your way through the IQ circuit, which is what he's done.
Yeah. So off to a 5-0 start. Right now, just more or less padding his points lead. Also, if he's looking toward next year, building a points lead to that. But he's had a great third and fourth quarter this year.
It's just really interesting, right? Where, we take a look at the leaderboard all year long and you see, names that everyone's familiar with. Brian Rondoin, Chris Van Meter, just Brad Nelson, a bevy of names that are on the top of the list, Ross Merriam. And, you always saw Kevin Jones. You didn't really see him a lot of feature matches, but he was always kind of going X into it opens. And you're just going, okay. And it's like the most boring name, too. Oh, Kevin Jones with this John Smith. It's like, okay, who is this guy? And then, we do the Open Series in New Jersey to kick off Pro Tour Concerts Arc here, Make Your Mark weekend. Kevin Jones ends up winning that event with a Jeskai deck that he's been playing ever since. Very few changes. And again, it's really impressive to just be dead on with a deck so early in the season. Normally, for the first week, it's like, okay, with a new set and a huge rotation, all right, people are just kind of feeling things out. But he just nailed it in week 1. He nailed it.
Yeah. And his list has not had too many changes since then. Now he's playing Wingmate Rocks, which is interesting, but actually not even that standard for the archetype.
It seems like maybe it's more of a metagame call than anything. Maybe electing to go with that instead of Sarkhan or going with Stormbreath Dragon. Hoarding Outburst is another card that he's going with that's picking up a lot in popularity. Played a big role in that last game that we just watched. So, outside of that, the base for this deck is he's really responsible for Mantis Rider, Seeker of the Wave, Goblin Rabblemaster, Jeskai Charm, Lightning Strikes, Magma Jets, some number of Dig Through Times. He has 2 this week and an additional 1 on the board, and we can't forget about Stoke the Flames either.
Yeah, the deck has become a little more streamlined. The first weekend there were copies of God's Willing floating around as well. But you're right, it's amazing how little the deck has changed since week 1.
It's just so rare that after a large rotation that actually happens and someone just
gets it right on the first try.
Home run right out of the park.
When we had, for example, our Obzon decks on that first week, a lot of them are running sets of Anafenzas in them, Read the Bones, also seeing a lot of play that weekend. Mana bases were all over the place.
4 thought seizes right away. I mean, some people opt to do that, some people don't. It's more of a flex spot. You know, I know Ari Lax is a big thought seize guy, so it doesn't surprise me to see him playing 4 of those. But you know, that number is negotiable depending on what you're going to play against. But again, for Jones, I mean, he was about 4 or 6 cards off. You know, people are still adopting the Narset in the sideboard that he had that weekend. It's just he just got it right, and the win. Now looking back at it, at that Open Series event, doesn't come as much of a surprise.
Well, certainly well on his way to doing it again. Remember, this is a 10-round event. Players will need to start 8-0 to make the top 8.
Yep.
Or can go 9-1, maybe 8-1.
Yeah, maybe 8-1-1, depending on how things do line up. I'm sure Kevin doesn't really plan on losing. Number 2 here on our Season 4 leaderboard, and right now he is leading things for our at-large bid. So he could be the points champion for Season 4. And he's up a game here against Abzan midrange and beat a Siege Rhino on an empty board, which oftentimes, you know, that's a situation where if a Siege Rhino on an empty board, you're just like, okay, Abzan's got this. This game's over.
I mean, it's really hard for Kevin to beat the Siege Rhino. And I mean, if you think about all the things that had to happen for him to beat it as well, like he had to have 3 pretty good top decks. He needed his opponent to stick on lands and to deal himself a lot of damage with his own lands.
It all broke that way.
Yeah, and even then, Kevin only had him exactly. If Chad had 1 more life point, that game could have gone the other way.
Yep. Chad will take a look at his opening hand. He'll be on the play here. Kevin will be on the draw. Looks like he's happy enough. He's comfortable there in the feature match area. He's been here quite a few times. Looks like Chad's going to send it back. So Jones taking a look at his hand from his Jeskai deck. Looks like he is happy. So game number 2 here in just a moment. But we'll take a look at the Season 4 leaderboard at this point. Just see exactly where Kevin Jones is at, and you'll see his name right near the top of it. He's got a whole lot of Open Series points.
Yeah, this started with the Star City IQs, but then transitioned into SCG New Jersey, where he was the standard champion. At 174, he's currently right at the top here. Chris Van Meter in first. Chris already won the Season 3 championship, so right now that spot will go to Kevin Jones if everything were to stay as it is.
Yeah, Jones is looking like he's going to lock up at least an invite. If he, you know, no matter how he gets it, I'm sure he'd like to be the points leader who's not qualified, but no matter how he gets it, he's going to be going to the Players' Championship, as will Miriam and Fabiano. Things get a little bit more interesting with Mize and Stephen Man. Those players, of course, Florida players. Imagine they're probably playing in an IQ this weekend, but I have a feeling we'll see them at the Players' Championship at the end of the year as well, as both players are going to start off game number 2 here with a Temple.
All right, Chad on 6 cards this time and on the play. That said, the Abzan deck with cards like Siege Rhino can certainly make up the difference in card quantity with card quality.
It's a Thoughtseize, 2 copies of Mantis Rider along with a Hordling Outburst, a couple of lands there for Jones with a Temple of Triumph, a Mountain, and 2 copies of Flooded Strand. And Aldrich says you need to make that Hordling Outburst go away. See if there's a second land here.
This is a really interesting line from Aldrich. So Aldrich has a copy of Bioblight in his hand, and it depends on how greedy he wants to play it. So Bioblight's a great answer to Hordling Outburst. It's also an even better answer to 2 Mantis Riders if Kevin plays 2 Mantis Riders into you.
Yeah, I mean, I like to give Kevin the benefit of the doubt. I would be surprised if he plays the second Mantis Rider into a Bioblight. This is a deck that is known for having Bioblight in the sideboard, too. Aldrich just going to play a land and pass the turn back. Jones going to play a Flooded Strand.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see if Aldrich Bioblights this first Mantis Rider or not.
See Kevin leaving his hand up here, so Chad doesn't have to worry about writing the cards down with Thoughtseize. The 2 lands and the 2 Mantis Riders, Chad does know about.
Face down cards are the one, yeah. So when Kevin draws a new card, he's just going to lay it face down in his hand.
Well, that answers
there goes that. It's going to be Hordling Outburst.
I guess Bioblight does answer it all the same. I mean, he's not going to fire one off. Take a draw here. Sylvan Curiat at the draw.
Hordling Outburst isn't that bad for Aldrich. He can draw any creature will answer this. So it makes sense for him to not use the Bioblight. It's a commodity in his hand. Also, he has another Thoughtseize.
That looks like he's going to fire that off. Yep. What are the new cards?
Another Mantis Rider.
Jeez.
Well, he's probably going to take Mantis Rider.
Yep. That card's such a nightmare for this deck to play against, too. The skies is how you beat him.
Yeah, it's not what they want to see. They do have Wingmate Rock. If he can build up toward, if he can get to one of those, he should be fine.
Jones draws a mystery card. That one's face down. And he'll add it to his hand, as negate was the draw. Interesting. Just an attack. Boy, is that telling.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the negate draw, or disdainful stroke draw, is pretty telling. Kevin feels ahead in this game and doesn't want to get Siege Rhinoed, so he wants to play his Mantis Riders on 5 instead of 3, which is a pretty big cost. He's losing out on a lot of damage.
Maybe he's sensing a little bit of weakness here.
Chad hasn't played lands.
Yeah.
If he's sensing weakness, I think he's doing it correct. He's correctly sensing it.
Kevin will draw. Copy of Battlefield Forge. There's a mountain. Sacrifice the Flooded Strand.
And now he can start to make Mantis Riders. A lot of discipline on Chad's part, by the way, to not have Biobladed these tokens yet.
I was a little surprised. I thought we'd just see Orly Outburst. All right, Bioblight and move on with life. Continue to play the game, and we haven't seen that yet.
And these goblins are about to swing in for their, I believe, their 6th points of damage.
Yep. Mantis Rider, a little shrug of the shoulders. Man, why not? It's attack time.
Now you have to see some sort of kill spell be used. It'll be Hero's Downfall on the Mantis Rider.
Doesn't even think twice. Just says, that's fine. Don't care. Yeah, even if he wanted to bluff something, he's just like, that's fine. It's dead. Stroke and Mantis Rider are the cards left in Jones' hand, along with a land. Chad will draw. Still having some issues with mana here.
It's got Utter End, Sorin, Elspeth, and Bioblight. Remember, everything but Bioblight there can be Disdainful Stroked.
He's just in 1 spell per turn territory right now. That's the problem. He's trying to work his way out of it. The thought process of do I cast a Sorin or not? Here's a Bioblight on upkeep.
A lot of discipline here to not play a 4-drop into that board.
Yep. Jones will draw. It's another copy of Flooded Strand. He's starting to flood out a little bit.
Ah, see what you did there.
A bit of a pun.
Yeah.
I'm not great at that, but I throw one in from time to time.
Gonna make the Mantis Rider. Still has that Disdainful Stroke up.
There's an attack for 3. Stroke is so good. Not just in this match, but it's just a really good card.
Well, it always passes the counterspell test of do you cost less mana than the spell you're getting rid of?
Yep. That's all you can really ask for.
That's why you see cards like Spell Snare being really good.
Cheap, efficient, countering cards that cost more than it.
Mental Misstep.
Well, I don't even want to get into
that costs 0. That costs a lot less than the card it counters.
The words mental misstep.
Force of will costs less than the card it counters usually.
Yeah, I mean, mental misstep is just a word that's like banned from SCG Live. It's just such a miserable experience. Utterance going to get countered by Disdainful Stroke.
These 0 mana counter spells, they're good, you say.
They really are.
Yeah.
But well, you know, I'm at 18.
Right.
I take 2 from mental misstep.
Oh.
Saw Kevin Disdainful Stroke the other end. That Chad did cast on his up. He's also going to sacrifice a fetch land here.
But Kevin's out of spells now.
Yep.
So, just takes 1 more from Chad. He does have a Sorin. He can make a flying blocker.
There's a land, just pass the turn back. Yeah, the problem here for Chad is that he's getting in the range of what this Jeskai deck does so well, which is just burn you out from here.
Oh, yeah.
He's at 6 right now. Courser. Top card, not a land.
I'm going to say I was surprised to see the Courser. I thought we were going to see a Sorin and then minus to make a chump blocker, and then next turn minus to make another chump blocker.
Buy yourself some time.
Time seems like what the commodity Chad needs.
Yeah, time has run out. It's a Stoke the Flames. That's going to do it. Kevin Jones going to win this match here over Chad Aldrich. 2 games to 0. Some mana issues for Chad in that game, but a man who's very skilled at playing Jeskai is 6-0.
Yeah, and both times Chad's mana really catching up to him there. The Obstinate deck's really powerful. Sometimes its lands can come into play tapped or have the wrong colors, and just Jeskai punished stumbles both times.
Yeah, that's what this deck does. We haven't seen a ton of it recently on the Open Series, but Kevin Jones is changing that around as he is 6-0 right now with a deck he's already won an Open Series with during this season. So we'll see if he can do it again here as we do come back to the booth.